to get right into this for you guys. So obviously, I put a title here, how to be a top performer in car sales. And I mean, for a reason, because I have a fair amount of experience in car sales. And I just want to go through some things. And the first thing I'm going to go through with you guys is actually, you know what? Before I get into that, I just want to ask you guys a quick question. Like, who here is actually in car sales? Maybe just put in the chat or just say, hey, yeah, I am. Something quick.
I was years back looking about getting into it again.
Okay, nice.
Hey,
Anybody?
not in car sales, but I'm working the parts department, and so we're getting into wholesale. So I think this video honestly might be really helpful and learning how to sell, upsell and whatnot, and getting to know customers.
Nice. Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, sales is communication at the end of the day, honestly. And like, if you're going to be communicating with customers and dealing with any type of customer service, like sales is going to relate to that in all aspects. So that's good, man. Good for you. Okay, here's another question then too. For everybody that's in here, like who feels like they're not quite at the level that they should be at and they feel like they can be performing at a higher level? I can't really see. There's one person you can raise your hand or just say, yeah, I definitely not.
Yeah, definitely not here. I know I can be performing at a whole nother level.
I like that. Awesome.
Part of the reason I follow you is because you also work with Hyundai. So I feel like if I'm going to learn from somebody, it's another person in the same brand as myself.
Nice. I like that. I like that. Yeah, I've been working with Hyundai for 6 years now, and Hyundai is a great product, and I stand by the product. All my family has a Hyundai. My wife had a Hyundai Kona, and then she just got into a Genesis G70 that I helped her get. And my dad has a Tucson. My sister-in-law, like my brother's wife, has a Tucson. So like the whole family, I'm getting everybody into the product because I definitely believe in the product.
Oh yeah, same here. My sister's in a Tucson, my wife is in a Palisade. I
Nice.
just put my parents into a Palisade. I've actually got a cousin up in New York who works. He's a sales manager at Genesis,
That's
so it's
awesome.
definitely a family thing too.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Good to hear. Okay, well, it sounds like everybody's here because they want to grow and they want to look at different ways that they can improve. So, I mean, I'm happy that I can actually help you guys out with that. And I'm gonna share some things here first. Let me make sure I know how to use this. There you go. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you guys like my top three secrets that I would say on how to be a top performer in car sales. Right. So these are three things that I think that you can implement anywhere. I would say if you're doing any type of customer service, like interaction, like George was saying as well. So this he can definitely implement as well. But if you're in car sales, then these were things that I did to make sure that I was the top salesperson for so long at my dealership. And I worked at a few dealerships actually, but I'll go through that with you guys. So I just put on here, this was actually back in my old apartment. And I just had my trophy case there because when I was working on the sales floor, I had my trophy case right in my office. And I just accumulated as many as possible from on the sales floor at Hyundai. It was like almost 4 years on the sales floor. And like I pretty much was a top performer every single month. So it's not easy to do that by any stretch of the imagination. It's difficult to be a top performer. I'm sure any of you guys that work in the dealership, like being the top performer, not only once, but every single month, year after year, is not easy to do. So I'm going to give you guys the tips on how, like, why I was even able to do it. Because, at the end of the day, you want to be a top performer because you guys want to make more money, be able to take care of your family. And so that's why these things are important. Now I'm a sales manager and we're actually the top Hyundai dealership in Western Canada. So we do very, very, very well. We have a very good team. And I've helped build this team. We have a really good culture. People want to come work for us specifically just because we have such a good culture. We have such a good team. The energy is really good. And not only that, but like, everybody's making money, everybody's having fun. And really, that's the biggest point. Obviously, any of you guys who work in sales, especially the automotive industry, you guys know how it is. There's a lot of headaches involved, especially dealing with customer service, because no matter how good of a salesperson you are, no matter how well you treat people, there's always going to be people that are upset with you. There's always going to be people that are not happy. You're always going to get those customers that even if you give them your absolute best deal on every product, the car, the back end products, the extended warranty, the parts, they're still going to find something that they're not happy with, right? So the thing that we need to focus on is what do we have control over, right? And so like that's what I'm really going to go into here is control the controllables and things that you actually can do something about and not things that are completely out of your control because those things are just they're gonna happen and it is what it is at the end of the day. Um I put here now that I put sales leader because I try to lead by example as much as I can. So like with my sales floor, because I was a top salesperson for so long, I do try my best to go out and close deals and interact with customers. And I'm trying to be like the face of the dealership, have conversations with anybody. If I have an upset customer, I'm talking to them right away. So I'm leading by example and I'm trying to show everybody on my team that, it's not just about coming in here and selling cars. It's also how you operate on a day to day. And if you're operating with integrity as well, because I'm sure, as you guys know too, like car salesmen have a bad stigma. There's that used car salesman. Everybody says that. I'm sure you guys heard that before. Like, who's heard that before? You sleazy car salesman, right? Pretty much everybody's heard that. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just human beings and we're just interacting with each other. So when you get to that point where you're operating with integrity and your customers feel like you're operating with integrity, then it's just so much easier to close people as well, right? So I was getting onto a little bit of a tangent on that, but I'm going to get into the next slide here. So this is just a story that I want to share with you guys because I know some of you guys, some of you guys might know me, some of you guys, know a little bit about me, through social media and stuff like that, which is great because, like I said, now we can connect with each other, which is amazing. But I just want to share a story about my reason why and what was my reason why for so long for being successful in the automotive industry and working so hard to be the top performer so I could provide for my family. And this beautiful woman here, God rest her soul, this is my mother. And my mother, she came here from the Philippines back in like 1989, a couple years before I was born. I was born in 91. And she moved here by herself and she was a very strong woman. And as you can see here, she had to start using oxygen. And it was back in 2012, she got sick and she got diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension and pulmonary fibrosis, which is basically the scarring on the lungs, where you basically lose all of your lung function and all of your lung capacity. So eventually, the only way to get better from it is you have to get a lung transplant. Like basically, your lungs are no good anymore. You have to get a lung transplant. So what happened is my mom got sick, and at the time when my mom got sick, I was 20 years old, and my dad moved out at the same time. So I was just a young kid going to school and just working a job at a nightclub and just paying my bills, that I had to pay. But all of a sudden, I had to become a man. And I had to take on the responsibility of like, oh no, sorry, Denny, like you're gonna have to pay all the bills. You're gonna have to take care of your family. So I had no choice but to step up and be a man. And I remember I would always kind of envy some of my friends because they were in such good situations. Their family would pay for their schooling. Their family would, buy their car for them. If all they, as long as they went to post-secondary education, yeah, we'll buy you a car, no problem. And I remember I'd envy them a little bit. But now that I look back in hindsight, I'm like, hey, you know what? If I didn't go through that adversity and overcome those challenges, I wouldn't be who I am today. It helped me become the man I am today because of the challenges that I had to overcome. And with my mother, what happened was 2012, like I said, she got sick. And I actually just read this book that was called The Power. I don't know if you guys ever read it, but The Law of Attraction. So it's about the law of attraction and how powerful the law of attraction is. And I started reading that book and I read it from like cover to cover, probably within 2 days. And that was right when my mom got sick. And I just remember just being so positive with her all the time and just praying and being so positive. Mom, don't worry. You're going to get a double lung transplant. Like, you're going to be good. She would get negative. I would literally go up to my room. I'd be by myself crying at my bedside with, praying, please God, take care of my mother. And I just remember going through that and being so positive. And then, you know what? God was looking out for us. 2014, we got a phone call. Boom. We got to go up to Edmonton, which is about a 3-hour drive from where we're at, drop everything, go there. A miracle. My mom had a double lung transplant, and that's a very serious surgery. And, she got another 6.5 years. She passed away in 2021. God rest her soul. I think about her all the time. But the reason I'm sharing that story is because when I got into car sales, my mom wasn't working. I had to take care of the family. I had to take care of all the bills. Like I said, I had to be a man right away. And if I didn't go through that and have to overcome that adversity, I would have never had the drive that I had. Right. So that's why I'm sharing this story with you guys, because I had so much success in car sales. And like, anytime I was tired and thinking like, oh man, like I can't do this, I'm exhausted, these customers are stressing me out, I would just think about my mom and just think about how strong she was to just push through her day to day, after getting her double lung transplant. And yeah, so I just want you guys to really think about it. Like, think about like, okay, so like, what's your reason why you guys are doing what you're doing? And if you guys have hopefully you guys have a notepad, like try to think about like what's one thing or even one person. I would say that's why I put who's your why. Put the one person that you're doing this for, because when you start doing things for other people, it's so much more powerful than you trying to do things selfishly and just for yourself, because it'll push you to different levels that you guys never even thought were possible. So, for any of you guys, like for Alex, if maybe it's your wife or if you have kids, it's like you got to really hone in on that, because I'm sure there's times where you're struggling and you're thinking about like, oh man, like what's going on? I'm stressed about this, like we all deal with a lot of stresses. And then if you really focus in on that why, it's crazy the amount of strength that it'll give you to just keep pushing forward and just keep trekking forward, no matter how difficult it gets. Right? So just want you guys to think about that. I wanted to share with you guys. So thanks for kind of sitting through that, just so you guys can get to know me a little bit better and think like, okay, like I'm not just on social media, like I'm a human being just like you guys. So that was my reason why. Love and miss my mom very much. I know she's probably watching me right now thinking like, damn, I'm glad that you're talking about me all the time, because I talk about her all the time. I think about her all the time. I have a tattoo on my chest that says Mahal Kita, my beautiful mother, which means I love you, because my mom was actually from the Philippines. So I'm actually half Filipino. So I'm always thinking about her, and she just gives me strength and she gives me energy. So find something that's going to give you guys some strength and give you some energy when you're starting to feel tired, you're starting to feel weak, and you don't feel like pushing forward. Okay? Now I'm going to go on to the next one. Okay? All right. So I just put here top traits of being a top performer. You guys can still see this, right? We're shared. We're good. Okay, my man. Okay, so the first thing that I put there, and I'm going to go into more depth about it, but the first one is being structured and disciplined. So I just remember when I was on the sales floor, I was very structured in how my day was going to go, right? So you got to try to plan out your day as best you can and stick to the plan every single day. And then not only stick to the plan, but you got to be disciplined in the plan. So like, let's say if you're on the sales floor and there's X amount of calls that you need to make, right? If you say to yourself, you write down a work plan, like we get our team to write down a work plan every day. Okay. So they write down a work plan. I need to make X amount of phone calls and I need to book X amount of appointments for the next following days. Or I need to sell, one car or whatever. And then they need to try to stick to their plan. And like, you know what, sometimes it happens and like I try not to give my salespeople shit all the time and be like, oh, why didn't you hit your work plan and stuff like that? Because I understand like the odd time you get busy with stuff. But at the end of the day, the point of the work plan and being structured with it and disciplined is that, okay, let's say you're so busy all day and you're back to back clients, but you said you were going to make, let's say, 30 contacts and you were going to book 2 more appointments, but you were too busy with the other 2 customers that you already sold. Well, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to stay a little bit later in order to do that. Right. And if that's what you have to sacrifice in order to hit your goal, then sometimes you have to make those sacrifices in order to hit your goal. So the biggest thing is really having a structure, right, in how your day to day is going to be and having a plan. So the issue is a lot of times, like salespeople, they just come into the dealership and then they don't have a plan on what they're going to do throughout the day. They come in, they go, they get a coffee, then they come back, and then they're not sure. Okay, well, let me just look into my CRM, right? I'm sure you guys probably have a CRM that keeps track of all your customers. And then you start looking through it, and your CRM is not that organized, and you're just kind of calling whoever, and you're not sure. But being structured means you're trying to time block and like you're timing certain things, right? Like sometimes you're gonna want to just like, oh, I want to take some ups, right? Like I don't know how it works at some of your guys' dealerships, but like ups means like people that walk into the dealership, right? So if somebody walks into the dealership, you know, am I looking for those kind of customers all day, or am I trying to bring in my own traffic all the time, all the time? Which I'm going to get into that as one of the secrets that I'm talking about. But that's really what you guys got to focus on is just being disciplined in your day to day, but also not only disciplined and structured while you're at work, because everything you do outside of work is going to trickle into your work as well. Like, have you guys ever heard that saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything? Like, have you guys heard that before? How you do one thing is how you do everything. So have you ever noticed, like maybe some of you guys have done trade appraisals on people's cars where you go out and you look at their car and the car is an absolute disaster and it's a mess. And then after you go, you know, if you go to that person's house, I guarantee their house is a mess. It's a disaster there too, right? So that's what I mean. You can tell, but or if you get somebody where their house is super clean and their car is going to be super clean, it's all going to trickle into one another, right? So that's what I mean by being disciplined outside of work as well. And I've also fallen into that trap where I felt like I had bad habits. I'm like, oh man, I don't clean my house enough and this and that. But you got to keep in mind, it's just about being disciplined, right? And it's a lot of times it's just writing down and trying to have a structured plan on what you're going to do. Like, even like I said, for instance, let's say your house, you know, if you got to keep your house clean, you know, and you have certain things that need to get done, you can't skip them, right? I'm sure if some of you guys have kids, like there's certain times you got to feed them. You're probably not skipping feeding them, right? Because you have to feed them. You're like, okay, yeah, all right, Jimmy, you got to eat, right? It's time. Yeah, it is time. I'm gonna make sure you eat. So it's the same kind of thing with your work plan, with your day to day. If you're coming into the dealership, for instance, okay. Second one I put here is obsessed. So the reason I put that is because I remember when I first got into car sales, like I was actually obsessed with being the top salesperson. Like all I wanted to do and all I was thinking was I'm going to be the top salesperson. Even when I would come into the dealership, I was telling people like, oh yeah, I'm going to be the top person. Like I'm going to be the top salesperson, like guaranteed. Like I'm going to be the top salesperson. And then it was my 4th month that I became the top salesperson, which is pretty good. Like I get that's hard to do. I understand that. Like maybe I have some natural ability. I'm not denying that. But that I had a goal in my mind and I was obsessed with it, right? I didn't care about anything else. Like I was actually working crazy hours, you know, and the thing is, I mentioned now that I was working crazy hours at the start, but the thing I want to tell you guys is that once I figured out how to be more efficient with my time and I was more structured with my day, once I was actually established and I had more experience, I was working my 8, 9 hours a day, taking my day off throughout the week. I had Thursdays off, so I'd have Thursday, Sunday off, and I was actually competitively boxing at the same time. So I had to train 2.5, 3 hours every single day. Couple times a week, I would have to train twice a day. And I was still the top salesperson, even while I was boxing competitively. So the reason I'm sharing the story about when you first start, you're obsessed, because that's what's going to get you to where you need to be. Like at first I had to be obsessed and I gave up all the other things outside of work, right? And I understand everybody has a different life and it's not always that simple, right? But sometimes you have to make those sacrifices to start in order to actually get where you want to get. So that's the biggest thing is become obsessed. And what I mean by obsessed is we also did like Grant Cardone training. Like that was who was doing our car sales training. We had to do it every day in the morning for an hour. It was part of our regiment. So we had to do it every day. But then even when I would get home, I'm like thinking about car sales all the time. Like, you know what I mean by obsessed? Like you're always thinking about it. Like no matter what, you can't think about it. Like, or sorry, you can't stop thinking about it. So that's what I mean. Like think about like a time when like, let's say, I don't know if any of you guys are married or not. I'm actually just recently married, but think about when you first met your wife or your husband, right? You're probably obsessed with them. You're thinking about them all the time. You're thinking about how you can help them. You know, oh, I can't wait to go see them, stuff like that, right? So that's what I mean by being obsessed. You got to be obsessed with the outcome and obsessed with what you're doing. And you actually got to enjoy it, right? Car sales is a lot of fun. I honestly love working in this industry. Okay. Third one I put is I actually put authenticity and integrity. So write those down too, because those are so important. Being authentic and operating with integrity. Like the thing is, when you're doing any type of transaction with somebody, with another human being, they're going to feel that authenticity. They're going to feel the integrity. It's not something that they hear, you know, in the sense it's going to be feel. They're going to feel it. They're like, okay, this guy is actually like, you know, trying to help me out and trying to like be honest with me and trying to give me good service, right? I mean, obviously, when you're working in the dealership, like you do have to make money on these cars. Like that's the only way we're going to get paid. But if you do it in the right way and you treat people with the right attitude and you know with the right energy, like with integrity, they'll feel that and they don't mind paying, right? Because have you guys ever been in a situation where you went in to go buy something, let's say, and like you met somebody and they were so great to deal with that you were kind of like, ah, whatever, I don't even really care what the price is. Like, I'm just going to buy it. Right. I'm sure some of you guys have been in that situation because I've been there myself where I'm just like, damn, like, yeah, like I'll pay it, whatever. It's not a big deal. Right. So the last one I put self-motivated and enthusiastic. So the reason I put self-motivated and enthusiastic is because if you're not self-motivated, it's so hard to find motivation from other people. The good thing of right now is obviously we do have social media, so we can connect with other human beings and they can give us a little bit of motivation, you know, but the thing is motivation is fleeting. Like it does go away. It only lasts so long, right? You're super motivated about something, you get excited, you start working harder on it. You know, it's like, you know, people always talk about, let's say you get into a marriage and early on everything's exciting and you're doing all this extra stuff, but then 10 years down the road, all of a sudden it's like, oh, honey, can you take out the trash? And you're like, oh, can you do it? You know, like you're getting upset about it. Like you don't want to go above and beyond, but you gotta be self-motivated to do these things. Okay. All right. Let me get into this next one here. So I just put here the characteristics to adopt in order to actually be a top dog. I put, right? Because I put top dog. You want to be at the top at your dealership. So the first one that I put is you got to be in control. Okay. And that directly correlates with the second part that I put, which is you got to be a professional instead of an amateur. So being in control, the thing is, and this is kind of a bad saying that I heard when I first start, like, I don't really like the saying, but when I first started in car sales, like our general sales manager, he had this saying and he would say, oh, you know, 95% of people are like sheep is what he would say. So what he would say is you basically just tell them like, hey, yeah, we're going to go here. We're going to go for a test drive. I just need your driver's license. Let me go ahead and grab that. You know, so it's how you're directing people through the process, right? If you're in sales, it's like you're not asking them. You're not asking them, "Hey, would you like to go for a test drive maybe?" Like we're not asking. Like at the end of the day, they're coming in because they want to purchase a vehicle and they're actually looking to purchase a vehicle, right? Whether they purchase it off you or they purchase it off somebody else, it doesn't really make a difference, but your job is to guide them through the process, but it's got to be in a way where you're in control. And that's what I mean. A lot of times, salespeople, they get a little timid on how they're trying to direct people to do things because I'm sure, as some of you guys know, dealing with certain customers, there are different personalities that you're going to deal with. You're probably going to sometimes deal with people who are like a type A personality where like they're like, no, 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 like, and they're going to give you some backlash, right? And that's totally fine. You just got to learn how to deal with those kind of people. And they're still going to respond to that, right? If people try to tell you like, no, 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 this is what we're going to do. Like, I just want the price first or something like that, right? Like, it's your job to take control and be like, hey, look, I understand where you're coming from. I get that you want to get, what the best price is on this. But what I would say is, we should check out the car first to see if you even like it, because you're not going to buy a shoe that doesn't fit. Like, let's say we go look at some shoes. They might be the best pair of shoes you ever saw, but if they don't fit you, you're not going to buy them anyways. So either way, I'm going to get you a good price on this. That's no problem. I guarantee that. But let's at least make sure you even like the car. Can we just at least go look at it, right? You got to be convincing. You got to be persuasive, and you got to just not take no for an answer. So that's another thing. Okay. And that's part of being a professional and being and instead of being an amateur, is you're at least letting people know kind of how things go and guiding them through your sales process. Because I'm sure all of you guys, even George, working in parts, like he probably has some type of process as what he's going to have to go through and certain word tracks he's going to have to use to say to customers in order to close, those transactions, which is going to be his goal. The third one I put there having welcoming energy. So what I mean by that is, like, especially if you're working at a dealership, somebody comes into your showroom, even if they already bought a car off somebody else, even if they've already been in the showroom multiple times, you should still be welcoming them, saying hi to them, making sure that they're good, going and grabbing them a glass of water, whatever it takes. That's what we teach our guys here, like our sales staff, guys and gals. And it's just to make sure that they're always taking care of the customer, like no matter what. We actually have it's like a 10-foot rule. So if somebody's even like within your vicinity, you should at least acknowledge them. Acknowledge them and make sure that they've been looked after and they've been taken care of. So like, even though like those kind of things, they actually go a long way. And you might even be helping your coworker get a deal just because they're like, oh man, Alex was super helpful just over here. Like, and he's dealing with another guy over here, and like he just feels better because he's having that like welcoming energy. Like you're welcoming them into your home, and they feel like you're actually trying to take care of them. Okay. The last one I put there, I put emotional resilience. So the reason I put that is because, like, sales is it's a hard job, honestly. Like, would you guys agree that sales is hard? Like, honestly, anybody that's in sales here, just raise your hand or just say, yo, sales is hard. I'm not gonna lie. Yo, you guys still there? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure you guys are still here. Anyways, sales is hard. I get that. If your mics are muted, it's all good. But the reason I'm putting the emotional resilience thing is because you're going to have a lot of times where you're stressed and your customers are saying no to you, and you haven't gotten a deal in the last 3-4 days, and you're like, oh man, but that's when you gotta step into that resilient mindset and just be like, you know what? Doesn't matter, because the next person that comes in, I'm going to treat them with the same energy, and I'm going to make sure I take care of them because I'm going to get the next customer. Right. And that's part of being resilient, is no matter what gets thrown at you, you're dodging it left and right. Bunch of stones are getting thrown at you. You're dodging them. It is what it is. And you still keep pushing forward. Right. So that's what I mean by emotional resilience. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to get into this. So these are the first secrets, the 3 secrets that I was telling you guys about. And obviously the first one, I put this one first because I feel like this is probably the most important thing. And the reason why I wanted to put this first is because I feel like people, they really fall into this trap where they don't think that their mindset is something that they need to work on. You know what I mean? Like they don't think that it's like something that they need to consistently improve on and consistently work on. It's like they think, "Oh, I heard that once." So like, yeah, I got it. But like it's not that simple. Like a lot of times you got to really ingrain things into your subconscious in order for you to actually start to embody that, right? And improve that mindset. Like I feel like I have a very strong mindset now, but when I was younger, I never had that. It was not this strong. It was not as strong as it was as like back then as it is now. Like even when I was a kid, like I grew up and like I was really tall as a kid. Like I'm like 6'7". I'm real. When I was a kid, I was like super tall and like I had glasses and like for some reason I was self-conscious about my glasses. Like I thought I looked like a nerd and like I didn't have a lot of confidence, you know? So like I had to work on that over time. And it took me a while until like probably like after like mid high school, I started to have more confidence because I was playing basketball and stuff like that. And I got contacts, so I didn't have to wear my glasses. So I was a little more confident. But I realized after high school that it was something that I needed to consistently work on in order to actually get better at it and in order to actually like improve on it. And I started then when I finally started getting around, other people that would fill my head with good positive things because that's another thing too. Like a lot of times we fall into these traps of just hanging around with the wrong people, people that are negative, people that are complaining about things. And, people don't realize that that type of stuff, even just listening to that type of stuff, it takes energy. And like you want to put your energy and focus into more positive things that are actually going to bring you a good outcome, right? And that's part of having a strong mindset. So this is what I put here for your mindset is a muscle. And the first one that I put is delusionally optimistic. Okay? So I'm delusionally optimistic, honestly. I'll tell you guys that right now. Like I always think that things are going to work out. Like, even if the probability is so small and like there's no chance, I still think, you know what? This is somehow going to work out. So that's what I mean by delusionally optimistic. So, like, for you guys right now, for wherever you're working, whatever you're working on right now, and if you're with customers, if you're, having an interaction with another human being about something, you have to be delusionally optimistic about the outcome that you actually want from the interaction that you're having. And you just have to think in your head that there's absolutely no way that this is not going to go the way that I want it to go because you're so delusionally optimistic that it's just going to work out. I don't care. It's just going to work out. Right. And then, but then what you do is because you're so emotionally resilient, like I said on the last slide, even if it doesn't work out, it's not a big deal anyways, because you're like, you know what? It's not a big deal. You can brush it off because you're resilient. And you're like, you know what? I thought it was going to work out, but whatever. Next time it'll work out. Right. So with the delusionally optimistic thing, I want to share another story with you guys real quick before I get into the next 2 points. But I'll give you another story about with my mom, actually. Okay. So because when she was basically in the hospital, she was on her deathbed, and I was there and I was by her side, and like she was struggling. They had her on a BiPAP machine for a little bit, and then they took her off it. And then she was just, it was coming to an end. And what they did is they put her in the hospitals. They call it comfort care. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that, but comfort care is basically where they're not giving her medication anymore. They're not giving her food anymore. And they just know that it's just a matter of time until she goes, right? So I remember this time when this happened. Um, the other nurse checked in, I remember. And just before the nurse checked in, I was like, my brother and my sister were there, and like I like gave my mom some Ensure. It's like a vitamin drink, and she drank a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, mom, can I give you your medication? And like she couldn't really talk, but she was like, yeah. So I gave her the medication, and she drank it with the Ensure. And then as soon as the nurse came in, the first thing I said to the nurse, I went and I talked to her and I was like, hey, can I ask you a question? I'm like, how long have you been working here for? And she's like, oh, I've been here for about 6 years. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, you've been working in this unit? She's like, yeah. I'm like, have you ever seen a miracle? You've probably seen some miracles, hey, since you've been here. And she's like, yeah, yeah, I have. And I was like, you know what? My mom's getting better. That's what I said to her. I said, my mom's getting better. I'm like, I just gave her Insure and I gave her medication. I'm like, watch, she's getting better. I guarantee it. Right. That's how delusionally optimistic I was. You know, I had this idea in my head that, you know what? No, my mom's going to make it no matter what. You know, obviously she didn't, but at the end of the day, did I feel better believing in my heart that maybe she could? Yeah, I did for the short period of time. It gave some comfort to my heart. I felt a little bit better, right? And that's what I'm talking about, being delusionally optimistic, and how it's just so much better to be optimistic rather than being pessimistic, because the chances of things working out, okay, maybe they might be slim, but guess what? There's still a chance, right? So even when you're dealing with your customers, there's still even though they hit you with 400 objections, you've tried overcoming them. You know, there's no chance. You feel like the chances are super slim, but you're still thinking in your head, you know what? I'm going to close this customer, right? And it's a mindset, and it goes into that second part, unwavering self-belief. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to get this done no matter what. I'm going to figure this out. So, and even with the unwavering self-belief thing that I was telling you guys about, like this comes down to, and I'll use myself as an example as well, as like when I first started, and like I don't know if you guys believe in like manifesting things or not, but you can actually manifest things in your life if you really focus your mind on it and really focus your energy on it. And I remember that's what happened when I became the top salesperson at my dealership, because I remember even when I got the job, I got the call that I got the job, and then that weekend I went for a drive with my friend Dino, and I remember I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I just got this job at this Nissan store, and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna be the top salesperson, like for sure. Like I'm super excited, and like it's in my mind, I was already the top salesperson. So that's what I mean by unwavering self belief, right? So again, these are things that you can work on though, and that's what I mean. Like you might not be in a place right now where you have unwavering self belief about things, but you can get there. That's what I'm saying. Like you can actually get there. Okay. And the third one I just put some strengthening your mind techniques, right? Like obviously we only have so much time on this, but I put strengthening your mind techniques. So things that I do, I'll share with you guys. Like every morning I do journaling and I write positive affirmations. So I write, I have relentless work ethic. I am disciplined. I am committed. I am resourceful. I am consistent. You know, at the bottom, I always put, I am grateful for Manisha. That's my wife, right? So I start the day off every single day with something positive and some type of gratitude to get me primed for the day, right? So the thing is, like these mindset hacks, like sometimes people like think like, ah man, I don't know about that. Like it's like you don't think it's that powerful. You know what I mean? But then once you start doing it and you see like how like you feel the difference, you're like, oh, okay, I'm actually in a better mood today just because I wrote some positive affirmations first thing in the morning. And I wrote some things that I'm grateful for. And now I just feel better going into my day. And now when I go into work and when I see a customer, all of a sudden they feel that same level of gratitude. And then you let the customer know how grateful you are for the opportunity to earn their business, right? And that's like a phrase that I would always use. And I would say, I would write this one down. I would say, hey guys, I just want to let you know I'm I'm super grateful for the opportunity to earn your business. Or I really appreciate the opportunity to earn your business. Right. And then they don't feel, because have you guys been in a situation where you dealt with salespeople where like you know all they're just trying to do is just sell you? And you can just feel it. Like you can feel they don't care about you. They don't want to get to know you. They could give a shit about you. and you can just feel their energy. You're like, yo, man, there's something about this guy. Like, I just don't like him. Have you had that? Like, because I've had it happen before, and I'm just like, man, I don't even want to do business with this person. Right. Um, sorry, I always get off on a tangent with things, but I also put on there like some type of reading, learning, growing. So I mean, the fact that you guys are even on a free Zoom like this, just to get a little bit of a perspective from me and my experience, like that shows a lot, right? Like that shows that you guys have a growth mindset and that you actually want to improve. And like the problem is, and I meet a lot of people like this, is they get into like this kind of weird level of arrogance where they don't think that they can learn from other people, and like I try to keep myself as humble as possible, like no matter how good at car sales I get or how great of a manager I am or all these good things that I'm good at, I still just understand that I'm just a human being just like everybody else, right? So I can't think that I'm above anybody else. And that's why I started doing this kind of stuff. And I'm glad you guys came because now I'm going to be doing this once a month. So once a month, I'm going to be getting on a Zoom, and hopefully, if there's even this is the way you got to look at it too. Like when you're trying to go through these kind of things, and when you do like Zoom training, you're listening to a podcast, anything like that, right? You're reading something, you're not going to pick up every little detail from the podcast, from the book, and just drastically change your life. What you're going to do is you're going to pick out one little thing that you're going to implement. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see some positive impact in your life because of the one thing that you decided to take from that, right? So even from this, you just, whatever the one thing is that you can take and start implementing it, then you'll be like, okay, you know what? I'm feeling good about that. I actually learned something, right? Feels good. That's what it is. Because that's what I mean by, that's why it's a muscle, right? So that's why I put like that little brain doing the weights, because when you're working out and stuff, like it's not going to happen right away. It's not going to happen overnight. And same thing with your mindset. You got to just work on it all the time, right? And that's why it's important, because you got to be able to improve on it all the time, okay? So I'm going to get into the next one here. Okay. So for sales specifically, obviously being a top performer, I put savage prospecting. So what I mean by prospecting, obviously, is you want to have more customers in front of you, because the more customers you have in front of you, the more opportunities you have in front of you to close deals, right? So that's what I mean by savage prospecting. Now, I'll get into it because now I put here how to prospect, and I just put be an innovator. So if you look up what is an innovator, well, it's somebody who comes up and with something new. You're trying to figure out something new that might work, right? So I put that first, and I wrote that door-to-door story because I'll give you guys a story of back when I first started selling cars and what I did, to get some leads and actually get some deals on my own. And I remember I finally got my cards. I was waiting to get my business cards. I got my business cards, and in the neighborhood that I was living in, it's like townhouse area. It's like, oh, it was like low income housing. And I like went to all my neighbors with my cards. But what I did is because all the neighbors and all the kids, like they all knew me and they all liked me. I brought my brother-in-law's dog. I went outside, and all the kids followed me with the dog. So I went to everybody's house and I was like knocking the door. And then like they would be like, oh, who's knocking my door? They come out, they'd see the dog, they'd see a bunch of kids, and they'd see me. And I would just say, hey, I'm just your neighbor. I actually just started in car sales. I work over at the Nissan dealership. I just wanted to give you my card because if you or anybody needs a vehicle, I'm more than happy to help you guys. And I just want to let you know also, if you send somebody my way, on the back there, it says I'll get you a $200 referral check. So even if you just send somebody my way, I'll get you. I'm just introducing myself. That's it. Appreciate you. Boom. On to the next. And I remember I ended up getting 2 deals out of it, just going around my block. That was the one time. So that was me just being in. And I ended up winning that month So, and I think I only won by like maybe 1 or 2 deals that month. So, like, even just being an innovator and coming up with a new strategy on how to get some more prospects, it helped me get a little bit more deals. So, you got to think about it like from your perspective. It's like, okay, like what am I doing extra? Am I trying to come up with a new idea that's going to bring some more traffic to me and bring some more opportunities in front of me? And then you get the more people that come in front of you. Like I said, even if, look, for instance, like even if you're not the best closer, it doesn't matter because you still have more opportunities in front of you. So let's say you're only going to be closing, let's say you only close 1 out of 10 people. Okay. But if you have more people in front of you, that's still going to be more opportunities and you're still going to get more deals, right? Even if you're not the best closer, but that's also something you can work on is your closing ability. And a lot of times the closing ability, honestly, it just comes down to how you treat your customers and if they actually feel like buying from you, right? And that's why that was like one of the first things that I put at the start is like the authenticity and integrity, because if they feel like buying from you, they'll go from we're just shopping around, just started looking for a car to, man, I wasn't even planning on buying a car today. Right. And I don't know if any of you guys ever heard that, but it's a good feeling because then you're like, okay, man, I know what I'm doing. Right. So I put market yourself as well. So market yourself as in, like, let's say you guys just started in car sales. Like, the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that everybody that knows you knows that you're in car sales, right? All your friends, all your family, they all know, right? I'm sure you guys have Facebook. You can just post a picture of you in your suit at work. Hey, I just started over here at, the Hyundai dealerships, and just putting it out there. We have X amount of inventory. If you or anybody's looking for a car, then shoot me a message because I'll get them a great deal. Like, whatever. But you just got to put yourself out there and let people know. Because I remember even when I first started, I wouldn't even post that much on Facebook. Like, I post way more now than I've ever posted, like, in my career. But when I first started, I would probably post maybe like a picture once a week, something like that, or like me with some customers, like every other week. And then I would get like 2, 3 referrals a month from just Facebook. And it would be people that I knew. So that's what I mean by you got to market yourself, because you're going to have your cousin maybe needs a car, or your cousin's friend needed a car, their car got written off, whatever. And then all of a sudden, guess what? Who do they think of? It's going to be you right away. So you got to market yourself in whatever sales you're doing, right? And then that third one I put, anyone, anywhere, anytime is a potential client. So I put that because once you get into a sales position, even though it's a little bit awkward sometimes and you got to get used to it, you should still just be trying to have conversations and acknowledging people all the time and just letting people know. Like, I remember back when like I said, when I first started selling cars, and I remember I went out for dinner with my friends, and even like the server, I'm talking to the server and being like, hey, like, what kind of car are you driving? You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I'm driving this. And then like, I'm just getting into their head and I'm like, oh, no way. You actually have like a Nissan? Like, I actually work at Nissan, and then all of a sudden, boom, I give them a card, and then it somehow turns into a transaction, just because in my mind, anyone, anywhere, anytime is a potential client. So that's what I mean by that is you got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and just be talking to people all the time, especially if you're in sales. Like, if you're selling something, everybody should know who you are. Everybody should want to have a conversation with you. And it's sometimes people feel like you don't want to like approach people and have conversations about it, because like you almost feel like, oh, I don't want to be like too pushy. I don't want to feel like, kind of weird about it. But at the end of the day, especially if you're in car sales, everybody drives a car. So it's not really that hard of a conversation. It's more like, hey, what kind of car are you driving? You know what I mean? And like, they're not going to be like, oh, like, what does it matter to you? Like, they're not going to do that. They're just going to tell you what car they're driving. And then it opens up a conversation. And then even if they're not looking for a car, guess what? Their friend or somebody they know or their coworker is looking for a car. Oh, guess what? I just met this guy and he actually sells cars over at the Nissan dealership. Yeah, I know you were looking for a car. Why don't you call him? Yeah, I got his number. Boom. And then all of a sudden somebody else calls you. And then your phone's ringing again. You're like, oh damn, I got another, I got another deal on the way, and I didn't even barely do anything. So that's what I mean by like this type of stuff. This is separate from what you would even get at the dealership. Like at the dealership, yes, you're gonna have to make cold calls. You're gonna have to contact your leads. You're gonna have to take customers that walk in, right? There's gonna be a bunch of different ways for you to get customers that are when you're in the dealership. But at the same time, you got to do the extra things if you want to be a top performer. Because even if these extra things get you, like I said, one or two extra deals from doing all these extra things, from having those little conversations when you go to the barber shop or when you go to the grocery store, like doesn't matter, right? Everybody should just know. It's just like almost like a knee-jerk reaction for you. And you just tell people like, oh, no way, I actually sell cars. Like you just let them know. And then all of a sudden you get a bunch of deals. Okay. All right. I'm going to get into this, the third secret here. Okay. So closing like a top dog. Okay. So I just put a couple different things here. The first one is always be closing, right? So maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't, but it's always be closing, as in anytime you're having that kind of a conversation with somebody about something, like let's say for instance, you're in the showroom and you're showing a customer a car, and then or you're showing them, let's say, a used car, and they like it, and they're like, oh, they start asking you questions about it, like, oh, what about this scratch over here? You're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, if I could fix that scratch for you, like, would you consider taking the car today? And you're just putting it in their head. It's like a subconscious thing. And you're just like, if they're asking you something, you're always asking them, like, yeah, no problem. But if I could do that, can we earn your business today? Could we get this wrapped up today? Like, what if I could do that for you? And you're always in your mind, you're always trying to close the customer, but it's not like super direct. It's not like you're, hey, like, oh, are you going to buy this car today? Like you don't want to do it like that. Like there's a subtle way to having these conversations with people to make sure that they still feel comfortable, because there is a thing that it's like a pressure, no pressure. Like at the end of the day, if you guys are in sales, like that's why I put this second part here, persistence beats resistance. Like you are going to have to apply some pressure on people, but you guys got to keep in mind, like these people actually need what your service is, what you're providing to them. Like they came in for a reason. So your job is to, sometimes you got to push people to make a decision, because I'm sure you guys know, like most people, it's hard to make a decision. Like it really is, especially like a big decision where you're dropping some money like that. Like it's actually really hard to make a decision. And if they're like, that's when you become hesitant and you're like, oh, well, I'm not sure. But it's your job as a professional to reassure them, right? And that's what I mean by the persistence, is you're still persisting, but you're doing it in a way where you're not like making them feel uncomfortable. Like that's really the art of it. And I remember this was something that I was so good at when I was on the sales floor, is like I was still pressuring people, but in a way where they didn't feel uncomfortable, where they didn't feel like, man, this guy's just trying to make a paycheck off me. Like I just kept bringing up all the positive things about the car, the reason why they were going to move forward on it, how good of an experience they're having. Guys, you like the dealership. I've been taking care of you from start to finish. You guys said you absolutely love the car. We're right at the price where you need to be. Like, it honestly doesn't seem like there's really any other reason we can't get this wrapped up right now. However, I understand. I want to make sure you're super comfortable with this. Why don't I just see if maybe I can do a little bit better on this and we can just get this wrapped up for you, right? So, and look, a lot of people are always like, oh, well, don't give them anything. Well, sometimes you got to give people something in order for them to actually push them over that little ledge. They're right there. They're right there before they're ready to make a move. And that persistence beats resistance. I put that because I remember I had this customer. I actually learned that from one of my sales managers when I worked at a Nissan dealership, because I originally actually worked at a Nissan dealership for about 14 months before I worked at the Hyundai dealership. And I remember I was with this lady, this girl, young girl who drove like an hour and a half to the dealership from a small town called Canmore. And she came in and she was with me for like 3 hours, and like I couldn't get it done. And then it was already the fourth hour. And I remember I went back to my manager and he was like, I was telling him I was getting frustrated. She kept having to call her dad and this and that. And then he just told me, he's like, Denny, he's like, persistence beats resistance. So that's what he told me. And I was like, okay. And then I went back and finally, after 5 hours, it was 5 hours, and then I got the deal. So that's what I mean by that. That's the difference, though, between a top performer and a middle of the pack performer, is somebody who's going to persist and overcome that resistance, because customers are just naturally going to give you resistance, like just no matter what. That's what's going to happen. And it's your job to just keep persisting and pushing through their resistance. And then all of a sudden you guys get more deals. And that's what I mean by, you got to kind of reframe your mindset about it, because you don't want to like feel like, oh man, like I don't want to be pushy and stuff like that and like feel bad about it. Like you should feel bad because they're going to go work with another salesperson who's going to treat them like shit and is not going to take care of them as good as you're going to take care of them. So you should feel bad that they don't buy a car off because of how good a service you guys are doing for them, right? How much you're going to take care of them. That's how you got to reframe it and be like, you know what, I'm just trying to help this person out. And especially if you qualify them correctly and you ask them the right questions, you'll know at the end when you get to the numbers in the car that it's the right car, it's the right price, they're dealing with the right person. It's just they need that extra little push just to make sure that they know they're making the right decision. Okay. Third part I put for closing is objection handling like a pro. So I put role playing there because if you guys work at the dealership, like you should make it a habit to even carve out like 30 minutes a day to just do some role playing, like with one of your coworkers, right? And just go through some scenarios that you ran into with some of your other customers and be like, hey, you know what, Alex, I had this scenario that just recently happened. Is there like, can we role play this? And I'm going to try to understand it a little bit better and try to see how you would handle it. Like, could we go through that? And then you start role playing and make it a habit of role playing. And like, that's what I was doing when we were at Nissan, is we would literally sit down and like present numbers. Like it's like a worksheet. So if any of you guys are working in car sales, that there's like a sales worksheet that you give to customers. And we would go through it and we would sit there for like an hour just back and forth. Oh, yeah, no, I just want to think about it, man. Oh, no, I got to talk to my wife, and we're just practicing, just going through all these objections like nonstop back and forth to make sure that we're like, okay, so when those scenarios come up, which they will, now all of a sudden you guys are sharper because you've already practiced this with your coworkers, for the last 2 weeks 30 minutes a day, and you've heard that objection so many times. So now when you hear it, you're like, oh, okay, I already know what to say. Right. And then it's like, it comes out just naturally, just super easy to come out. And then I put the training video thing because like the more you try to consume this kind of stuff, and that goes back to being like obsessed with it. And right now, honestly, like I'm obsessed with trying to improve my ability as like a sales trainer. Like I've been working these sales workshops, and like I have another coach that lives here in Calgary, and he has a coaching company. He actually asked me to help him with a sales workshop as well. So even me, like I'm always trying to watch and trying to improve like as much as I can, because like I don't got it all figured out either. You know what I mean? And I would never act and pretend like I do. And like I'm sure you guys are in the same boat. You guys are probably really great at one thing, but you probably still think like, okay, well, I'm not gonna pretend like I know everything because I still need to learn and improve, right? And that's why you guys are here. And that's why I put the training videos and just constantly trying to improve on things. But hopefully that helps you guys a little bit. with the ABC thing, especially, and the persistence beats resistance, because I've been able to implement these things, for a very long time. And, it's helped me. It's helped me a lot. And I know time flies pretty quick because it's already been an hour. But I'm going to be, like I said, I'm going to be doing this once a month. And I have another sales workshop actually coming up. It's about 5 hours usually. So I'm going to have a full sales workshop where we can dive into things more deeply. It's probably going to be on January 12th. And I'm going to have a Zoom too. So I'm going to have it in person. So we're going to be running it here with people, but I'm also going to have a Zoom because I actually had a couple people come via Zoom last time and they really enjoyed it, like through the Zoom training. So I'm going to go through that as well. Okay. So hopefully you guys got some good value.